Hello, welcome. DrupalCamp, Costa Rica. How are you guys doing? Yeah? Living the dream? All right. This is pizza making in Central America. Welcome. You're in the right place? Okay. Accessible continuous integration. This is a primer. This is an idea that I kind of came up with, born from a bunch of other kind of related topics that I cobbled together. Here's a brief outline of what we're going to review today. I'll introduce myself. We'll do some role playing, and we're going to look at what continuous integration is as a principle, as a topic, some limitations. We're going to ask the question, what are your users about? Yikes. And we're going to discuss a future vision that I have, what accessible continuous integration is and how that fits into the vision, some case studies, and a call to action. First, who am I? I go by Nerdstein in the Drupal.org community. I am very happy to be here today. Thank you for allowing me to come. I am the Associate Director of Engineering at Civic Actions, which is a fantastic place to be. It's an awesome company. You guys should look us up. I have a Master's of Science in Information Systems and Security from Penn State University. It is in North America, in the United States. I'm the Drupal 8 maintainer of about, I don't know, I'm up to like 15 or 18 modules now, some of which you might have heard of: taxonomy menu, password policy, key encrypt, field encrypt, services, are ones that I participate with, help maintain. So let's get this show started. Who wants to do some role playing? Yeah? All right. Okay. These are United States characters. Sorry, I apologize. Maybe I should know my audience better. Kenneth Parcell. All right, what is Kenneth Parcell about? Well, he is an intern in the IT department. He's very hardworking, very ambitious, right? He's eager. You've met people like this, you know, they're really go-getting, right? But he's still learning, right? He's new, okay? And unfortunately for Kenneth, he has screwed up the last 3 code releases that he has built. Yikes, right? In his free time, Kenneth Parcell likes to knit and fly kites. Wonderful. Beautiful hobbies. All right, Ron Swanson. He runs the IT department like a boss. He's not technical at all. He's terrible, right? He knows nothing. He has no budget. 0. He could barely afford to pay his people. And he loves scotch, he eats meat, and he actually hates IT. Fancy that. He's the IT boss. I don't get it. All right, and then we have Corella DeVille. She is the client of IT. She is that who is served by the IT team. She's really not technical. If Ron wasn't technical, well, she's really far out, right? She is a true honey badger. Okay, she does not give anything, all right? And for her hobby, she likes to eat babies. Okay? All right, so we've got the players. Now, let's talk about continuous integration. Let's make sure that we know what's going on in the world. All right, first, the Slack conversations, they are getting ugly. They're getting hideous. Corella, and I quote, "Your next Drupal release better be accessible, or I will eat your babies." Ron says, "Team, okay, go figure it out. I love scotch." Kenneth, "This is my chance. I'm going to own this, I'm going to do it, and I will make it right." He is all on top of it. Folks, this is life or death. We've got to watch out for these babies. Kenneth stumbles on a concept called continuous integration. Fancy idea, right? Don't solve the same problem more than once is the quote, one of the manifestos of doing continuous integration in DevOps, right? That's one of the primary things. So Kenneth researches deployments, and he finds some Drupal.org articles, and it says, use Drush to script deployments, right? Cool idea. So Kenneth develops a bash script, and he throws a bunch of Drush commands in this script, and he executes the deployment. Guess what? He goes back to Ron. He says, "Hey, I found a solution. Here it is. I did it, right? I automated this. Awesome. So Ron responds, and he says, oh, I was so close to firing you. I was this close. So make sure that all the rest of the engineers can do it. Oh, and I want more scotch. So Kenneth researches more about how do teams work with continuous integration, right? How do we do things together as a group? Well, he found that there's a tool called Jenkins. And Jenkins allows you to put scripts inside of a tool and run them in a distributed way. Pretty neat, right? So that fits in really well with the teams because now anybody on the team can run Kenneth's script. Cool. So Kenneth moves his bash script into Jenkins and gives his team access, and everybody's cool. Everyone can run the Drush script. That is a picture of their office after Kenneth got Jenkins stood up. Yeah! Winning. All right. So let's shift gears. DevOps is meant to automate solutions to long-standing CI problems. So things come up, we are going to try to find ways to automate them or script them or innovate with them. Could be process related. And this is what we're going to call DevOps. The model or the principles of it is around continuous learning. You're about trying to learn and grow your practice in a way to apply it to solve problems, right? So it's a version of applied problem solving. And the idea is really that if you operate in a consistent way, that can equate to more stability and a little bit more predictability in how you do things, how you operate. So everyone, I would agree, would think that if you automate something, it's a lot less error prone. You can do things more consistently if it's automated instead of doing things manually all the time, right? I'm going to run this command, I'm going to run that command. Well, you could type it wrong. You could screw it up, and that has consequences, right? So, but this mantra or this idea has really started to rip down barriers. It's not related to just doing code deployments. Now people are looking at how do I do releases? How do I scan things for security? How can I audit logs? There's a bunch of ways that you can apply the same concepts and improve how you're looking at solving these problems, right? So the claim that I'm going to make is that you offer a better service to your users if you adopt CI and DevOps practices. Is that fair? Cool. But let's get back into our story, right? So we have some scripts and Kenneth and Ron. So let's look at what could happen with some current limitations if we use these things as it is right now. So Kenneth runs his deployment successfully from Jenkins. Kenneth emails Ron and Cruella, hey, your deployment is complete. And it actually works. It's amazing, right? Cruella responds, you fools, I can't believe that you forgot to send me the accessibility report once again. Why are we even paying you? Ugh, you're terrible. So Ron chimes in while he's eating a bacon cheeseburger. And he says, no. Why can't your fancy Jenkins tool let Cruella run her own damn accessibility reports? I don't understand, right? Ron doesn't have any money. Why does he want someone to keep running these reports? Doesn't make any sense. So Kenneth creates a second Jenkins job to execute the accessibility scans, right? He's going to automate that too. Awesome idea, right? And he provides Cruella access directly to Jenkins. Says, here you go, Cruella. This is awesome. I'm going to make this happen. Here's the keys to the kingdom. Wow, Cruella has a nuclear meltdown. She explodes like big mushroom cloud, right? And she says, what kind of insane technical system is this? Who do you think I am, Einstein? Well, Kenneth just ducks his head. He's, I've had enough. This is bad. And Ron adds yet another item to a list of customer complaints. Your security scans are long and illegible. I can't test my code before it goes to production. I have thousands of unread emails. Why do you keep emailing me? This is what Ron hears as a director from IT, right? Heard that before? I have. Okay. So let's try to understand what's happening. I read a great blog post today. It was called The Art of Designing with Heart. And there was a couple good quotes in it. Good software, I'm going to read this, sorry. Good software is friendly, casual, approachable, but also serious, gracious, and respectful. Just like a pleasant real-life experience you would have at a local business. Insert whatever experience that is, getting a cup of coffee, going to a restaurant, whatever, right? I put a link to the blog post there. The author is Jonas Downey. We must evolve continuous integration practices beyond just technical problem solving. That is the claim that I'm making in this talk. It is more than just technical people producing solutions, technical focused solutions, to those that we serve, right? We should be asking the question about how do we serve these people? The outcomes that we desire is for better service, right? That's what we're aiming to do as part of this activity, part of this work. And the services that we provide are for our customers. They're not for us. They're a means to an end, right? To help them. Can we at least agree, as a starting point, that those that we serve should be a part of this conversation? Do you think they should? Yeah, you're on the fence about it, yeah? But the claim I'm going to make is that we are missing those that we serve inside of this process. So far, we've just been focused on technical innovation. So how do you actually know if you're improving? How do you quantify that or measure it or evaluate? So let's take a look at the users, all right? Let's talk about them for 1 minute, because they're an important part of this conversation. What do your users actually need? Well, first, what they need confidence in your services. They want to think, oh, they're great. They're covering it. What they do works. They're awesome, right? They need continued assurance that you are making good decisions on their behalf. They want to know and be regularly reminded that you're looking out for them, right? Because you are serving them. And they need continued trust. But I will tell you, in my experience, that trust can be very easily shattered. You make a mistake, depending on the magnitude of that mistake, you break that trust immediately. Your users, you could lose them in a heartbeat. So it's a very hard problem. Let's take a look at what the users actually expect. They assume that you know and that you are following best practices, right? They're not like putting that in a contract. They want you to be doing it. They are expecting you to be doing things the right way, right? They do not want any surprises because you did not do something the right way. And so the one key part about this is there's times when this might not be visible to them. So they can't always check in on you. They might not understand if you are following best practices or if you're not. So what are some examples? Well, following regular site and system updates. They might not be aware that you need to install system updates. But you should do it, right? That's best practices. Or accessibility and compliance. They would expect that you're making a website that's accessible and compliance, for any user that has impairments or hearing or vision problems, right? And proper permissions and capabilities, right? This is an easy one to overlook, especially in the Drupal world. If we're building really great technical solutions and we forget to check a box on the permissions page, that can be pretty frustrating. And lastly, they assume it's comprehensive, okay? So they have no bounds. The world around them is free. They get on Facebook and Twitter, and they have these awesome tools that are right at their fingertips all the time, right? And these amazing devices that they can install any app on their phone and do crazy things. So they are expecting you to be able to develop any feature they ever imagined. The sky is the limit, right? And they want it to be visually perfect. They want it to have every feature they ever imagined, and they want it to be secure and performant, and they want it to be immaculately maintained, right? These are the expectations of your users. And folks, they are crazy, but that is okay. These are those that we serve, right? This is our goal in the world, is to serve them, right? So what's the future vision look like? Well, first, I'm going to ask a very related question. What is the secret sauce for Agile, right? So one of the things about this is about learning. We talked about continuous learning. So how do we do this in a way that we can reflect and learn as we continue to work and evolve as professionals in this world? Agile is iterative, right? So, but there's an important mantra about Agile that is the secret sauce. The first thing about Agile is it is built on the premise of people over process, right? So as we're talking about this, the idea is that we need to emphasize the person and the individuals, the users, instead of just the technical solutions or the tools or the things that we're providing, right? I'm reading a book right now called The Art of Business Value, and there's so many gems and quotes in this thing that I just will recommend that you read it. But I pulled a couple out for the sake of this talk. Business value must be discovered, it must be learned for valuing requirements. The key part of that sentence is learn and value, right? By Mark Schwartz, he's a CIO of DHS, it's a government agency in the United States. So how do we apply this to the things that we figured out in the situation that we talked about with Cruella and Ron and Kenneth? Well, first, innovation is not just about technical breakthroughs. The problem is not the tools, right? It's that they're not approachable. You need to open a dialogue with those that you serve to build technical bridges and social bridges. So what if the first person who ate poison berries was allergic and we're missing out on some delicious berries? That's the question to ask yourself here, right? And another quote from the book. I'm going to read it. When you build software, you're painstakingly inventing a machine that stands in your place, feigns sentience, which means like you're reigning over something, right? And interacts with these people on your behalf so they can accomplish something meaningful. Oh, sorry, this wasn't from the book. This was from the blog post I referenced earlier. When you're building something, you are forcing your users into tools that you are setting up for them. You have a lot of control over this, right? So please bear that in mind, because your focus should be on digital enablement. If you're effectively serving your users, you should be focusing on enabling your users to use the tools, the digital tools that you are building, creating, or offering them as part of your service. So let's promote digital enablement for continuous integration. Let's take a step back and refocus on some of the things that we've described. Let's emphasize the ease of adoption and removals of barriers to entering our world and using the things that we use. Let's promote effective information sharing and transparency, because openness is going to be a huge game changer if it's effective. And I want to also emphasize that there's a lot of related knowledge here with human-centered design, HCI, and usability. So in driving towards usability, that will help your services and your tools to be more effective if you're building something. And you should aim to deliver comprehensive and streamlined services. So if the tools and services you offer are, they cover a lot of ground, but they're also optimized, like they're very easy and simple, then you find that your users actually will use them more regularly and they're happier. All right, so I have 4 principles that I have put together, as part of my vision of where I think that this should move in the future. So first, let's frame these high-level goals in this way. Simple, so it should be void of encumbrance, right? If it's simple, it's easy, period. It's useful that you are solving a problem, right? You're actually doing something that gives people value, business value, like we're talking about, right? It's flexible so that you can build robust and scalable solutions for them. And you're not making assumptions about where the solution will be 3 years from now. And lastly, it's transparent. If you are committing to being open, you should make sure that you open up that communication. You should do it concisely, and you should do it frequently. So you have complete transparency over whatever you're doing. All right. So we want to take continuous integration to the masses. That's the goal here. We want to make it not just a technical exercise. Onward with the stormtroopers. We will do it. All right. So where does accessible continuous integration fit with all this? First, do not get confused. Wikipedia defines accessibility as the following: the process of creating products that are usable by people with the widest possible range of abilities, operating within the widest possible range of situations. This is the definition of accessibility. First, do not get confused with 508 compliance. They're different things, right? So don't confuse the dictionary definition with the web definition of accessibility. So what are some current practices that build bridges right now? Well, here are some ideas that I came up with as I was starting to research all of this. Well, first, you abstract technical details. Your users do not want technical details. They don't want it. Hide that from them and communicate in a way that your users understand and it speaks to what they are trying to do. The next one is systems integration, right? Users do not want to use 800 different systems to perform different actions. Try to integrate the systems and build tools that allow you to do that, right? So it's one-stop shopping. They learn one thing, they use it all, right? Streamline processes. The more that you can automate and the more that you're able to help them, you will streamline the work that they do and they will be happier. They will be more void of encumbrances. They won't have to run manual steps or do extra things. You can automate, right? Kind of cool. And then lastly is platform and device agnostic. One of the problems that, in the past with a lot of proprietary solutions, they only work on certain devices. They only work on certain tools, certain web browsers, certain things, right? That's being blown up. We have these amazing things in our pockets that are capable of doing incredible stuff. And our users want the ability to be able to use any device in the world and have it work, right? So let's take a look at these in great detail. Abstracting technical details. Well, first, there's a concept, the KISS concept. Who's heard of that? Yeah? Keep it simple, stupid, right? Easy one. Systems must promote usability. They must account for technical literacy. Guys, this is huge. Do not assume that your users understand how to use a technical system, right? Every user has varying levels of technical literacy. My grandma has never turned on a computer. How could she use something, right? It would be very challenging. But you have to think like that, right? Also, looking at building finely tuned user interfaces is a really critical part of doing something with usability first. Try to avoid things like command lines. I mean, I know the Drupal console, right? Drupal console is great, but it might not be, yes, right? And also limit decision points, right? Your users should not be overwhelmed with choices, okay? It should be very easy and streamlined and straightforward. Give them 1 or 2 or 3 choices, not 50. And it should be consistent. Integrating systems, okay. So while you're deciding on technology that you want to use or tools that you're evaluating, the number one thing that you should look at is interoperability. Because if you are adopting continuous learning practices, you cannot predict what your user needs in the future, right? So if you build something right now and it is not operable, you will not be able to guarantee that you will meet their future needs, right? So it's kind of important. I would also say that you should look at connecting systems instead of forcing users to use multiple systems. I did mention that earlier. And how do you do this? Well, you make use of web services and APIs, plugin systems, and you give back to the communities that also help. So, we're here in Drupal, right? And you heard Ryan's talk earlier about giving back to, the communities, right? So if you're enhancing these tools in ways that help your users, I guarantee you can help other users too. And you should give that code back and make sure that other people can benefit and you will look like a rock star. I want to be a rock star someday. All right. End user involvement. Cool. All right. So, hey, if you're focused on your users, well, guess what? You need to get them involved, okay? You can't have a one-way conversation. Identify the systems that your users are comfortable using. Do not assume that you're going to pick the right system for them. Bring them into the evaluation. Let them use the tools. Give demonstrations. Let them give feedback and be comfortable, right? Because you're serving them. You should avoid forcing users to use systems or services, right? Then they're just going to not be happy. And that's never a good thing. So encourage user testing, encourage dialogue and feedback, and make sure that they are participating. That's the key point of this slide. And platform and device agnostic. Okay. Users want access everywhere and all the time immediately, right? So avoid systems like email, which can, you have huge, massive amounts of backlog of thousands of messages that are unread. You're not gonna reach them, right? It just doesn't work. So you can have communication breakdown if you don't use the right messaging. Also look at adopting the best of breed systems that don't restrict platforms. So the great thing about open source communities, especially like Drupal, is it's not focused on making everything Drupal. They're pulling in Symfony. They're pulling in Twig. They're pulling in all kinds of other things, Composer, all of these tools that are outside of the Drupal community but can make Drupal better, right? So that interoperability is huge because then you have a best-of-breed solution that is doing all of the right things that many, 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 many systems out there are taking advantage of. It's polished, right? And also, this is just a silly reminder, do not make systems that only work on desktops. For the love of God, please make sure they work on phones, make sure they work on tablets. Do not pigeonhole yourself with one system. And this is basically how you are able to tear down the walls of continuous integration participation, if you follow those ideas, right? So let's look at some case studies. I had to throw something Donald Trump in there. I'm sorry. Go United States. All right. So how are we seeing accessible continuous integration in the wild today? What are we seeing right now that exemplifies these things that make it look really cool? First, Slack and Jenkins. All right. Slack. Who knows what Slack is? Communication tool? Yes. All right, many people. Good, great. Jenkins, we talked about Jenkins earlier. So Slack and Jenkins is a happy DevOps marriage. The two are perfect. They were made for each other. They go hand in hand down the street. They're very cool, and they like each other very much. So Slack is really intuitive for people that are not technical, right? They like it. They like running the Giphy command and searching and throwing images up on the Slack channels, right? So Slack is great because it's already usable and people like it, right? So let's take advantage of it. Slack supports custom commands. So if you have a Slack instance, you can write your own commands inside of Slack that any user can run. Pretty cool, right? It also has help text and all kinds of fun stuff. So let's give an example here. Suppose that you want to run a security scan and you want to do that from Slack and you want to send back a summary message from the scan. Well, you can do that, right? That's one example that you can write a custom command, hook it into Jenkins, run the scan, and return the messaging back. Very easy. So those commands can run, it would fire from Slack, but run in Jenkins. And it had different parameters. So if you have different choices for those users, you can send those across Slack. And it works like a boss. Pretty cool. Users are happy. On-demand environments. Okay. So one major issue with continuous integration is how do you do builds, right? Someone does code, and that's in a repo, and it gets merged in after a code review. But what happens if there's a problem with it, right? And you have a build ready to go to production. Now I'm ready to do my release, but it's not, it hasn't been fully tested yet. Well, on-demand environments are really good because basically you can take one piece of code, move it to its own environment, have that specific piece of code be tested by an end user, and then have it rolled into a release, right? So it's really easy, and by the way, you can integrate with Slack. So if you're using containers like Docker and using code repositories and branching, you can make all of this stuff really easily accessible by running a Slack command that says, test this branch. And it returns a URL that a user can go in and log in and do the testing. Fancy idea, right? So this actually simplifies and improves the release management of what you're doing, because that code is better vetted. Containers! All right, data analysis. So let's take a look at this for 1 second. We talked about communication, right? Communication with users is a really key part of accessible continuous integration, making sure that you're engaging users, right? So how do we promote transparency? Well, data analysis is a huge way to do this. So if you put data at the fingertips of your users, you're basically giving them information that can make their lives better, like a security scan, accessibility scan, whatever, right? So something like a dashboard, building a dashboard and analyzing your code or running scans or doing things and showing information that is relevant to your users is a great way to summarize information and put information in their hands all the time. They go to a dashboard, they see what they want. They might see charts or they might see data statistics about how many high accessibility errors there are on your site or what have you. And that's information that they want to know and can give them confidence in the work that you're doing. And they can just go to a browser and pull up a page and see it immediately. So that's pretty powerful. And there's a tool, it's called the Elk Stack. So if you are interested in doing these sorts of things, that's a good platform framework to look at. It's Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana all in one. The tools come together to produce these really elegant dashboards, and they can analyze a lot of information and summarize it. The last thing I want to talk about is Jira, which is a ticketing system, BDD, and repositories. So if you want your developers to be producing better results, right? You should really look to hook the systems in together, right? Integrate them. So one way to do that is by trying to leverage Jira, the code repository, and behavior-driven development, which is using tools like Behat or some other testing framework, right? So Behat is really great because it allows business users, per se, or stakeholders, to write out tests in a friendly language. As a authenticated user, I want to go to this page and I should see this. That's a simple test, right? And that's a pass or a fail. If they see it, you see it. If you don't, it fails. So development activities can actually be validated better if the users are writing tests into the tickets, right? So then how do you take those tests and actually have that go into the development cycle? Well, there's a tool called Behave. It's a Jira plugin that creates a field inside of a Jira ticket, allows a user to specify a Behat test, write the test in the way that they're accustomed to writing, and that integrates in with the code repository. That bridge of integration is huge, because then when that test is written, the developers can pull down the code, run the test, validate that the work that they did meets the requirements of the ticket, and it's better, right? You get immediate feedback from your developers. It either works or it doesn't. So that drastically lessens the feedback loops, which means that code does not have to be deployed to get it tested. Pretty slick, right? All right. My call to action to all of you in the room. First, unlock the potential of your processes. Okay? Empower your users. Get them involved. And that is what accessible continuous integration is about. Da-da-da. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.